Hey there everyone, Mazarok here, and this is the first of the Beginner of Tanks series. This one here was requested to me in the Mazarok community Discord, link for that down below, because Blood DK is not the easiest tank to just pick up and play. There's a lot of fine nuances that you need to know and learn about, but when you get it, oh, you're like invincible. It's so fun. So we're going to be breaking down passives, what everything is. So if you're thinking about picking up a Death Knight, you want a tank, you've never tanked before, this is going to be a really good video for you. Now, if you're asking questions on why I chose Venthyr or this or that over another covenant such as Necrolord, there is a Death Knight guide that I made down below onto why I made all of those things. So once you watch this, you can watch that. And in tandem, you should be able to get the entire Death Knight experience to be able to kind of know what you're doing. One of the things I will be covering is how to start a pull as a Death Knight, because that is your most dangerous time. You have no runic power. Now, what is runic power? Runic power is what you generate by expending your runes. So if you look on my screen here, we have 6 runes. You spend runes on Marrowrend, Heart Strikes, mainly that's it. The occasional rune tap if you're in trouble, but this you do not click very often. So Heart Strike is your main ability that generates runic power. It's kind of your main AoE, does damage. It hits 2 targets, but if you are in your Death and Decay, can hit up to 5. So that you should be keeping your Death and Decay up as much as possible so you can hit as many targets as you can with your Heart Strike. Marrowrend generates charges of Bone Shield. Now, what Bone Shield is, so let's go over here. Yeah, okay, it's on this one here. So, Bone Shield surrounds you with a barrier of whirling bones, increasing armor, and your haste by 10%. Each melee attack against you consumes a charge, lasts 30 seconds or until all charges are consumed. Now, you combine this with the Ossuary passive, so while you have at least 5 Bone Shield charges, the cost of Death Strike is reduced by 5 runic power. Additionally, your maximum runic power is increased by 10. So your goal as a BDK is to constantly have 5 charges of Bone Shield. Don't worry about overcapping. If you're at 9, you're fine. You'll use them. When you hit 5 is the time where you want to hit Marrowrend again. Marrowrend is not a high damaging ability. It's really not something that you want to be spamming at all, and it costs 2 runes versus Heart Strikes 1 rune, and is AoE. So you're going to want to get your Bone Shield charges up first things first. Now, one way that you can do this is by constructing the Crimson Rune Legendary. Now, what that does is Dancing Rune Weapon, which is one of your main abilities here. So it summons a rune weapon for 11 seconds that mirrors your melee attacks and bolsters defenses. While active, you have a 40% parry chance. This is a very strong opener to use with, especially while you're getting set up. So immediately you hit Dancing Rune Weapon, 5 stacks of Bone Shield. You're already well set up for a pull. 40% parry chance. It is RNG whether something's going to parry or not, but it is way better than nothing. And you're already set up for a Death Strike if you kind of already need to, once you have the runic power built up. Additionally, when Dancing Rune Weapon fades, your rune generation is increased by 40% for 10 seconds. So your runes here will generate a lot faster once that goes off. So you can generate more runic power with quicker Heart Strikes and things like that, and not have to worry about that sort of spam and things like that. So this is the one that I prefer to use in Mythic Plus. As you read the rest of the green there, that's actually the Tinker from my engineering belt for the Invis. Don't worry about that. You can put it on if you want. It's a side note. That's the one I like. Technically, the best legendary for Mythic Plus is actually Super Strain, which puts the other plagues from the other specs, so the Frost Fever and the plague from Unholy, on all of your targets as well. This gains a lot more benefit in longer pulls. So the longer a fight goes on, higher keys, especially when you're pulling big, lots of people and they don't die that as fast. You know, if you're pulling only 5 packs or things like that, especially in like normal kind of routing, you're just not going to get the benefit out of Super Strain. Crimson Rune is going to be your go-to, and it just encourages you to constantly go and just never really stop and just go, go, go. I prefer Crimson Rune weapon, but once you start hitting higher walls, Super Strain's probably going to be better for you. But while you're learning BDK, I think Crimson Rune is going to be your safer option. So you open up with Crimson Rune. I then open up with a Swarming Mist. I do enjoy that class. 1 minute cooldown, the Covenant ability, sorry. 1 minute, nice big AoE all around you, and a Blood Boil. That's what I like opening, and Blood Boil deals shadow damage and inflicts your Blood Plague on all the enemies within 10 yards. Now, this ability here should almost never be sat on. You should be using this whenever you can, but you do not want to spam it. So you should not be like Blood Boil, Blood Boil. So an opener would be like you use your Dancing Rune weapon, which you can use at a distance. Swarming Mist as you're going in, which gives you nice dodge. Hit a Blood Boil, get your Blood Plague out there. Heart Strike, maybe a Death Strike or another Blood Boil, depending on how your threat generation is going. But, you know, a Heart Strike, maybe a Death and Decay or another Blood Boil. And that's kind of how you get yourself set up a little bit. And that's how you start generating runic power and going. Now, you started taking damage. What do? Death Strike. This is your main runic power spender. Now, basic costs 45 runic power, but if you have that 5 stacks of Bone Shield, it will be 40. And honestly, you can look at your runic power as a second health bar, because it is very, very important. Now, a Death Knight going into a pull with no runic power is at full health is in more danger than a Death Knight going into a pull at 30% health with full runic power, because Death Strike is actually your main form of mitigation, which is very, very weird. You play another class, your mitigation is don't take the damage. You know, you hit a damage reduction, 20, 50%, whatever it is, you don't take the damage. Death Knights take the damage and immediately self-heal it, so that's why you're kind of like the heart attack tank for healers. It's not uncommon. Like, I've asked healers, have you healed a Death Knight before? Because a lot of people haven't, and they don't understand what to do when they freak out when they start seeing the health bar go from 100 to 30% to 100 to 40% to 100 to 30% again, and it can be very, very quick like that. And on certain pulls, my Death Knight has hit 16,000k healing per second. I have. And been completely fine. Like, at no point was I in danger. So, if you ever hear someone say, just spam Death Strike, that is actually bad advice. You want a Death Strike when you are below 100% health. Very, very important there. Now, if you're going to cap on runic power, if you're at 80, and your choice is a Death Strike at full health or maybe a Heart Strike, but you want to pry a little bit more single target damage, because Death Strike does offer a lot of damage. Single target damage, go for it. As long as you have a Death Strike in reserve. And the more that you tank Mythic Plus or something, you're going to be able to anticipate hits. We'll take the Death Speaker from the other side, the Shadow Core cast, the Tank Buster mechanic on that pack. You will immediately go from 100 to 40% health if that does not get kicked. But if you save your Death Strike, you know it's going to go off, and you have a choice between hit Death Strike before the cast goes off, or do a Heart Strike, because you know it's going to go off, and then immediately do a Death Strike. You're going to see your HP bar in literally like 0.5 a second go from 100 to 30 to 100 again. Just like that. And knowing when to use that is a very, very important. So that is actually your main form of mitigation, but that doesn't mean it's your only one. Now, you do have Lichborn. So draw upon unholy energy to become undead for 10 seconds, increasing your leech by 10 seconds, very strong, and making you immune to charm, fear, and sleep. So if you're feared, hit Lichborn, you're good. This is a good defensive cooldown, and when you pair it with the endurance conduit here, let's go over. Do I even have it equipped? No, I was raiding and I wanted this. Where is it? My goodness. Hardened bones. So I was rating, so I wanted that here. So what you do is the hardened bones, while Lichborn is active, you take a percentage of less damage. So it is a nice, easy. It's not a lot, but you don't need a lot, right? Because you get the extra leech, which gives you more healing back. The Death Knight is all about healing yourself back from the damage that you've taken, which can really, you know, like I said, be a type of heart attack tank. Another strong defensive cooldown is Vampiric Blood. You embrace your undeath, increasing your maximum health by 30%, increasing all healing absorbed and healing received by 35% for 12 seconds. So if you know you're going to be in trouble, you can heal yourself up strongly by clicking Vampiric Blood first and then hitting Death Strike. So on top of the big heal you're already getting from your Death Strike, you're going to amp that up by another 35% with Vampiric Blood, which pairs nicely with Red Thirst, reduces the cooldown of Vampiric Blood by 1.5 seconds per 10 runic power spent. So on average, it's going to be, quick math, 6 seconds per Death Strike that this is going to get reduced, and usually it is around a 45 second to a minute cooldown. I have seen it go a little bit lower, but it's usually between those. Bone Storm is a strong AoE ability that in 9.1.5 is going to get uncapped. That is going to be good for large pulls, although if you are new to Death Knight tanking, be wary of this because it does take some skill to master, but once you've mastered it, it is very, very strong. Now, ways that you can increase your Death Strike healing is with the Hemostasis ability, which is the one you're normally going to take anyway. Each enemy hit by Blood Boil increases the damage and healing done by your next Death Strike by 8%, stacking up to 5 times. Now, it does not take a genius to figure out that you can get that Death Strike in an AoE pull to hit 40% extra healing very, very quickly. So if you do not have any stacks of Hemostasis and you are not below 30% health, get comfortable living there in that 40 to 50% range. You hit Blood Boil on several packs, you get that extra Death Strike, and then boom, done. This is why you want to constantly be using Blood Boil when you're doing big pulls and things like that, AoEs. This should never, ever really be on cooldown for long, like I said, but you do want to spread it out, like I said earlier. So that is kind of your main breakdown. This is what's going on, and you're gonna see people be like, oh, you take so much damage as a tank. Yeah, but I heal it back up. Like, it's not uncommon for a Blood Death Knight to out-heal a healer throughout the course of a Mythic Plus dungeon. I do it frequently. Very frequently, and in fact, a few of the healers that I run with in guild and things like that, the first time they ran with me on my DK, they were like, oh my god, freaking out, but now they're like, I just don't touch you. Like, I just don't touch you. You're good, because you're just boom, 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 done. And once you learn how to be able to Death Strike properly, which does take some time and practice, to know when you're in danger. And knowing when you're in danger is when this runic power bar is below 50, and you can't Death Strike, and a big hit's about to come in, you're in danger. But as long as you have runic power generation going through, let's say, Swarming Mist, and the rune generation from Dancing Rune Weapon to get more Heart Strikes off, because Heart Strike generates runic power based on how many enemies it hits, which is really important, especially if you've got more than two mobs at once, that you want to be Heart Striking as much as possible while your runic power is below that 50% marker. Very, very basic. Now, you don't have a lot of movement ability as a Death Knight. That's one of the things it does struggle with. But you do get to negate a lot of things, and this is where a couple of very strong defensive cooldowns come in. First being Icebound Fortitude. Normally 3-minute cooldown brought down by an Endurance Conduit. Now, what it does is it grants you immunity to all stun effects and reduces all damage you take by 30% for 8 seconds. Very, very strong to have. Just great. For example, if you're pulling Sargadon, you can actually stay in his little pull-in cast. As long as you have Icebound Fortitude up, you click that right before it goes off, you're not getting stunned, you're still doing damage, and you can just heal yourself back up. So it's not even a healer problem. Very, very nice. Another good, strong defensive cooldown that you have for Raid is your AMZ Bubble. You reduce all magic damage taken by 20%. 2-minute cooldown. And now this is based off your health. So the more health that you have, the stronger that AMZ is. So a good thing to do is to pop Vampiric Blood, then AMZ. But as with all defensive cooldowns that are damage reduction based, you need to know what's happening before it happens, right? If you've already taken the damage, it's too late for AMZ. It's already too late, right? It's nice to have afterwards, but you're not negating anything at that point. So if you know there's a rage cast or something coming on in DOS, or Shadow Core or whatever it is, you pop down AMZ, some sort of big big magic damage coming out that anybody can get into your bubble. Pop Vampiric Blood, pop AMZ, and you're going to get a nice big magic absorb shield for 20% of all incoming magic damage. Now, for personal magic damage, and this is where DK gets really, really fun, is Anti-Magic Shell. So it surrounds you with an Anti-Magic Shell for 5 seconds, absorbing X amount of magic damage and preventing an application of harmful effects. Now, this does not remove harmful effects, but it does... It will prevent them. So if it's already applied onto you, then you hit AMS, it's going to stay there. The magic damage will get absorbed, but if it's like a 15-second magic dot, you're screwed. But if you click AMS before those are going to hit you, you just negate it. And this is really, really fun about DK, is you just negate everything. You're just like, I don't want to deal with this. No, you're like, no. No. It's just not happening. So that is kind of the basics there. And one of the things where I keep saying get comfortable living at 30%, this is why. Damage taken below 30% health is reduced by 30%. Now, this doesn't help if you get globaled, but this is constant. No cooldown. Whenever you hit 30%, you always get this big damage reduction. So you are very difficult to kill when you're below 30% and you have runic power, because you just death strike yourself right back up. Very, very nice. Now, one of the things Death Knight is actually really, really good at is control. You can control the mobs around you. Now, unfortunately, kiting is a little bit more the meta in Shadowlands right now, but that doesn't mean that, you can't do good as a Death Knight. Grip of the Dead gives a 90% slow. Now, it starts 90%, but it decays as time goes on to anybody that hits into your death and decay. So what you can do is start running away, drop a death and decay, and just keep on kiting away. And that really, really helps with kiting. Now, another thing that you can do is you have death grips. Death grips is if an enemy is trying to escape, or if a caster is casting and there's no range kick or anything, you can just Mortal Kombat Scorpion, get over here! Bring him in and really control your mob setup. And if you want everybody in one tiny pixel spot, because you want everything in Wild Spirits and Flame Strikes, and you just want everybody right there, you hit Gorfien's Grasp and everybody just locks in onto your target and you pull that in. Now, this is on a 2-minute cooldown and is very, very fun to use. Now, yeah, really, that's kind of your basics. Now, I went over talents in the other video, but you want to do Heartbreaker because you generate more runic power per target hit. So, obviously, go to a Mythic Plus. Blood Drinker's your go-to for raid. Blood Tap. Now, for example, if you're starting, go with Relish and Blood. Just go with Relish and Blood. Blood Tap is something that I explained in the other video on why I take it. But if you're starting, go with Relish and Blood. So this should be a normal setup for you. Now, if you want to be more defensive, Voracious is a really, really good pick. Death Strike's healing is increased by 20% and grants you 15% leech for 8 seconds. And since you're always Death Striking, you're basically always going to get that 15% leech. Very defensive. See what I mean? You're constantly getting yourself back up. This is a great defensive option, but it has no offensive capabilities, where Bloodworms is a good defensive option. Not as good as Voracious, but a much better offensive option. So that is your choice there. So let's go over a couple more of the passives here. So your auto attacks on targets infected with your Blood Plague have a chance to make your next Death and Decay cost no runes and reset its cooldown. So when it's glowing, that's your Crimson Scourge proc. You know what it is. Now your Mastery. So important stats for Blood DK. Haste, very, very important. Increases rage regeneration, increases your global cooldown, decreases your global cooldown so you can get more stuff off. All around solid. Versatility, I mean, increases damage taken, increases healing done. You're a Death Knight. That's good. And decreases damage taken. These things, versatility is already really good for tanks, but it is even better for Death Knights. And unfortunately, I'm having a lot of trouble breaking that. I'm just not getting enough versatility gear. I've been very, very unlucky with my drops there. Now, the mastery that you get. So each time you heal yourself with Death Strike, you gain a shield based on the amount healed from the physical damage absorb as a physical damage absorbed. Now, this isn't magic damage, but you have anti-magic shell for that. But you gain a nice big blood shield for that. And it also increases your attack power. So mastery is something that scales really, really well defensively in higher keys that you go. Because especially the higher the key, the more incoming physical damage. Auto attacks are going to be, especially once you get up to 16s, 18s, 17s if you want to get there, and higher, auto attacks are frequently going to be the highest source of damage that you're going to get from bosses and mobs, because that's what scales the hardest. You think it's going to be the tank buster or this or that. Well, that is a problematic and it scales, but do not underestimate how hard auto attacks hit the higher the key is, and the mastery is going to scale very, very well for you in higher keys, which is why I'm happy I have like a 39% for that blood shield. So let's sum it up. You get nice big chunky death strikes through things like voracious, hemostasis, and things like that. You do a nice big death strike heal, and then you gain a big physical damage absorb shield, and this is how you constantly go and you mitigate it. And that's really the core of what a Death Knight is. You can negate things such as stuns, things like that, and you can really control the battlefield. So, as I've been talking here, I've been putting up footage on Death Knight pulls and things like that, and you can see how I've been doing. Now, here's a little bit of more utility that you can use if you wish in dungeons. Now, one thing people forget is you have a little raised dead pet. There is a weak aura that you can get, so he does extra damage, and then after a minute, he's going to go away, or you can pop him for big healing. So, Sacrificial Pact. Sacrifice your ghoul to deal shadow damage to 8 nearby enemies and heal for 25% of your maximum health. This is something that you want to do near the end of a pull, where you know you're not going to have him for the next one. So, pop him, you get some nice extra healing. 25% of your max HP is not light and is very, very good, especially for only the cost of 20 runic power. Don't underestimate using him. And if you see, I have a weak aura that tells me when he's about to pop, because I'm not the greatest at tracking the 1 minute cooldown on his duration. So I'll have that little glowy thing. It'll come up. Hey, he's about to pop. Oh shit. Okay, pop pet, pop pet. And I'll do that. Control Undead. This here, I love it. See, there's the weak aura for the pop pet. He lasted a minute. So this is my cue to spend the 28 runic power, deal extra damage, and get some free healing. Control Undead. So in Theater of Pain, for example, the Ancient Captain pull with the 4-pack that he has he puts an AoE debuff on, like a AoE buff on the surrounding pack, sorry. You can control Undead him. Just be like, no, you're my friend now for the next 5 minutes. And he gives you guys a 2% damage buff and a 2% damage decrease, AoE decrease from incoming damage. So test out what you can use Control Undead on. If you're having trouble in Korthia, go to the southeast corner, of Korthia, where the big skull spike devastators are. Make them your friend. This is on you can use it every 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, they become hostile, but you can just use it again. And you have a friend that's going to just follow you around and fight whatever you want to fight and just add extra damage onto you. There are uses for this in Necrotic Wake. Theater of Pain, and other places as well where you can control Undead. Very, very strong to have. Another good use that Death Knights have is Death's Advance. For 10 seconds, your movement speed is increased, which is very good for Death Knights, and you cannot be slowed below 100% of your normal speed, and you are immune to forced movement effects and knockbacks. So Globtrog's Plague Stomp, you pop Death's Advance before it hits, you're staying put. The last boss of Spires of Ascension. Oh, I'm sorry, I've been talking a lot. Last boss of Spires of Ascension, when you have to go pick up the orbs, you will not be slowed under 100% movement speed by hitting Death's Advance, so you can get to your orb and back nice and quick. Very, very useful. Situational at best, but very, very useful. So, we've broken it all down. Get up your Bone Shield stacks with Dancing Rune Weapon if you're running the Crimson Rune Weapon, or your Marrow Rends. Generate Runic Power with Heart Strikes. Increase Death Strike healing by Blood Boils, and use Death Strike to heal yourself back up. And have all of that fun utility and control and negation, and just be like, nah, oh, you're gonna deal a chunk of magic damage to me? Anti-magic shell? Nah, you're not. That is the beginner's guide to Blood DK. If you have any questions, you can ask me in the Discord below or comment section down below here as well. All of the fun YouTube stuff, please do like, comment, subscribe. It goes a very, very long way. As time has been going on, this community has been growing. We're almost at 600 subs as of the recording of this video, which, I mean, this is just a passion project for me, so really, it's just really, really nice. And the support that y'all have given me has been absolutely amazing. So if you like this type of content and you want to see more, let's go. I think the next one's going to be Warrior. I've been maining Prot Warriors back in Kata, and like it's been my favorite tank for a while, and I know really the ins and outs of it, and it is my highest IO tank. So I'll probably do a beginner's guide to Prot Warrior because it is not the easiest one in the world to get, but man, does she crank out damage, and it is defensible when you learn how to play it right. So thank you very much for all the support. I hope you guys have yourselves a great day, and I hope you're enjoying Shadowlands as much as I am.